Minister of Justice, survivors, excellencies, distinguished audience. I would like to thank the Planning Committee and our host, the Municipality of Copenhagen, for making the effort to hold this important event, even under these trying times of the pandemic. Special thanks to the Jewish Museum, its former director, Janne Lorsen, and the new director, Janus Moller Jensen, for your indispensable educational work to spread knowledge on Jewish life in Denmark, alongside the work of the Jewish community. This mission has become more important than ever. 15 years ago, Israel initiated at the UN the resolution to designate January 27th, the day of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp, as an annual international day of commemoration in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, HaShoah. Auschwitz symbolizes to us the ultimate evil, the insane, inconceivable attempt to execute for the first time in human history an industrial annihilation of an entire people, the Jewish people. Marking this day and fulfilling the imperative to combat anti-Semitism have become, unfortunately, more needed than ever. The well-documented rise of anti-Semitism in recent years in Europe and elsewhere leaves us no other choice but to double our efforts. The Jewish population in Europe has been declining in recent decades. A growing percentage of Jews express concern for their future in Europe and disclose that they consider to leave, mainly to Israel. Some of them have been doing so in growing numbers in recent years. This is indicative, more than anything else, of the painful reality that a growing number of Jews across Europe are losing their sense of security in the place that has been their home for so long. Thank you, Minister of Justice, for your warm words conveyed last September at the Conference Against Anti-Semitism in the Danish Parliament. Your commitment to combat anti-Semitism and put forward an action plan to fight it are commendable. Indeed, in order to combat anti-Semitism effectively, there must be a determined political leadership and a broad and genuine national willingness to do so. Prime Minister Frederiksen stated here exactly 1 year ago, immediately after returning from the moving ceremony in Jerusalem to mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and I quote, "It is universal to have the freedom to be who you are, believe in the God you believe, to be safe, you and your children. No minority should be exposed to hatred. This is not the Denmark we want." But before I mention what else is needed, let me return to the past in order to remember why we cannot be complacent. The human inability to comprehend the horror of the Holocaust has led people to define Auschwitz a different planet, as if Auschwitz stood out of time, out of history, out of human sphere. When we initiated the UN resolution on the Holocaust, we wished to emphasize that Auschwitz did not take place on another planet. Auschwitz was a real place. The Holocaust was man-made. It was cold-blooded, well-planned, monstrous act by real people who were educated, appreciated culture, poetry, literature, they loved music. We wish to remind that Auschwitz did not start in Auschwitz. Auschwitz was the culmination of centuries-old process of hatred, contempt, blood libels, dehumanization, forced conversion, discriminatory legislation, exclusion, expulsion, and massacres. Auschwitz was the culmination of an effort to erase every trace of Jewish existence. The Jew was the ultimate cosmic evil. He corrupted society merely by his being. There was no salvation to humanity other than the complete elimination of the Jew and his ways of life. It was an abhorrent vision that at the end ruined Europe and devastated humanity. We wish not only to remember the past, but also to guarantee a safe future with its rich Jewish life. It means to keep the tradition that accompany this life as defined by Jews. We asked that everything in Jewish life that was under threat could thrive, be free of intimidation, free of political cynicism, of populist tendencies, including by those who claim to be progressive, free of the attempt to deny abruptly and arbitrarily communal and religious freedoms achieved and recognized for generations. We wish to protect against the tyranny of what might be a capricious majority not sensitive to the rights of a minority. We have seen in the past, here in Europe, how easy it was to manipulate public opinion, to engineer it, to deny decades long of enshrined rights of minorities. It was then an act of aggression and amputation, an interruption of the sequence of Jewish life and its logic. It was an expulsion of Jews from the human sphere. Today, there is a threat to set the mark of Cain on Jews merely because of their beliefs and traditions. It is an act that is bound to encourage anti-Semitism and grant it legitimacy, whether this is the intention or not. We hear again in Europe that acceptance of Jews as legitimate full-fledged citizens is conditional upon giving up some of their traditions and freedoms. What is this obsession of interfering in Jewish life time and again? How come such a decreasing minority in Europe evokes these heated emotions and calls of actions to deny its rights? How come a public debate on these questions has become so toxic and hateful as we have experienced recently? We in Israel look with grave concern at these developments. We commend, however, the historic, responsible, courageous role that the Danish leadership has shown over the last decades in protecting its Jewish citizens. We are convinced that this commitment is unshakable, as demonstrated by the previous and current prime ministers and heads of opposition. We in Israel appreciate this long-standing commitment and the rock-solid bridges that have been built between the past and the present into the future. It should serve as an unbreakable bridge between Denmark and its Jewish citizens and as a keystone in the relations between Denmark and Israel. Indeed, with the unprecedented historic rescue comes memory, and with memory comes responsibility. Prime Minister Frederiksen emphasized this important lesson last September, as did her predecessor, Prime Minister Rasmussen, in October 2018 during the visit of President Rivlin, the President of Israel, and I quote, "You must be able to live a Jewish life in Denmark as one has been able to do for hundreds of years. I will stand by the promise Denmark gave the Danish Jews after the war. I hope that we are able to remember history, including history that has become more and more distant to us." The Danish leadership is not alone in this commitment. Last December, the European Council, in its declaration on mainstreaming the fight against anti-Semitism, reaffirmed the imperative to protecting Jewish life and making it more visible as part of Europe's identity. At the same time, the declaration emphasizes the need to apply tools in the fight against anti-Semitism, like the working definition of anti-Semitism of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA, in order to address anti-Semitism more reliably. It reminds us that there is still much to do, and I quote from the declaration, "States that have not yet endorsed the definition are invited to join the other member states and endorse the IHRA working definition as soon as possible." This is also our urgent expectation, especially from our friends, namely to endorse in full this comprehensive definition. The fight against anti-Semitism has to be resolute. It has to cover all its manifestations from all circles, old and new anti-Semitism, against Jews and against the very existence of the State of Israel, the safe haven, the sanctuary, and the national home of our people. Thank you very much.